So this is Norma Jean, my little yearling Mustang filly that I've got in training for the Sacramento Tip Challenge. And I am starting to teach her to lay down. So for me, the very first step of teaching the lay down is making sure that I can use halter pressure to get my horse's head to go all the way down to the ground, to get their nose to touch the ground. And you can see here that we're struggling a little bit. Every time she drops her head, I give her a release, but she's actually wanting to touch my hand more with her nose looking for a cookie than she was thinking about actually dropping her head. So I moved my hand hold. You can see I was holding on the lead rope. Now I'm holding further up, basically above the knot where the lead rope connects to the halter. And right there, she touched her nose to the ground. So I said, good, give her a complete release of pressure, left her alone, and gave her some positive reinforcement. Here, I got a little smarter, and I started off using my hand higher up, not down on the lead rope where I was encouraging her to just touch my hand and look for a cookie. I am using cookies and positive reinforcement here. It's important to note, since you can't hear it because I took out the background noise of the video because of the wind, but it's important to note that at the exact moment that she does the thing that I want her to do, I mark that and I say good, and that way that she knows exactly what she's done correctly. She's just not randomly getting a cookie. All right, so when I started out asking her to lower her head, I was facing forward, and I feel like that's a safer position to be in. My head is further away from all of their feet. Once I feel like they've got the behavior and they're being gentle about it, not worried about it, then I'll turn around and face backwards like I am here. The reason why I do this is because eventually I'm going to use a whip tap cue on their belly to ask them to lower their head, and this is the position that I'm going to need to be in for that. So I want to make sure that they're comfortable and I'm comfortable asking them to lower their head to the ground with me in this facing backwards position. So you can see here she's starting to drop her head a lot quicker. She understands what I'm asking her to do. It's not taking as long, so I decided to go ahead and get the whip and introduce the whip tap cue. So before we worked on this, we were just working on some circling. So pretty much as soon as I started to engage the whip, she's thinking that she needs to maybe go forward and start doing some circling. So I have to take a second here and just rub her with the whip, pet on her, let her know that I'm actually not asking her to move right now. I want to make sure that I take away any anticipation, not just in the circle, not just in the lay down, but any anticipation of me asking for behaviors right away as soon as my horse sees the whip. So it's important that if I see any of that anticipation from my horse, that I take it away by just petting on them. So you could see there, we reset, pet her with the whip first. She's good, she's not moving around. So I feel like we're good to go ahead and introduce the whip tap cue. So I'm just barely, very lightly touching her belly. It's kind of an annoyance cue, and you can see her first reaction is to move around and stomp at it like it's a fly. I've got some downward pressure on the lead rope as well. Not much. I'm not trying to pull her head down. I'm just trying to give her some communication or information through pressure on the halter and lead rope there to help her understand what I want. So in the beginning, I'll do it again here. In the beginning, I'm going to combine the two cues. The new cue of the whip tap, I'm going to combine that at the same time with the old cue for lowering her head that she understands, which is downward pressure on the lead rope. So I'm not using either cue individually. I'm using them together just to help pair the two cues in her mind. So very gentle tapping and also very gentle downward pressure on the lead rope there. Now once I feel like she understands that the whip tap on the belly does not mean to move around, and she's starting to maybe make a link in her mind about whip tap might mean lower my head, then I'm going to separate the two cues. I'm going to do whip tap first and then a little downward pressure on the lead rope to ask her to lower her head. So eventually I want to not have to use any lead rope pressure. I want her to just, like that, that was really good. I want her to just lower her head from the whip tap cue. So no pressure yet on the lead rope. And again there, she lowers her head really nicely from just a gentle whip tap cue. So what I'm looking to do here in teaching the lay down this way is put a cue to the way the horse naturally lays themselves down. And here, I wasn't asking her for anything, but she offers me the head down. So I decide to just go ahead and capture that and reward it with some positive reinforcement. This is the joy of using positive reinforcement in your training as well, is you can capture good behaviors that your horse offers and you can reward those even if you're not using pressure. So if I didn't have food rewards with me, or if I wasn't using positive reinforcement with her, there's no way that I could have rewarded her for lowering her head in those moments because I wasn't using any pressure to ask her to lower her head in those moments. So I couldn't give her a reward through release of pressure. Okay, so anyway, by teaching the lay down this way, I'm basically trying to put a cue to the way a horse naturally lays themselves down. So you watch them lay themselves down, in the pasture, and they drop their nose to the ground, and then they gather their hind feet underneath their body, and then they bend their knees and they go down to the ground and lay down. So this is the very, very beginning stages of that. So this is the next day. Where we left off the day before was basically she was starting to understand, almost without a whip tap on her belly, that when I knelt down, what I wanted was for her to lower her head. And I felt like that got pretty solid. So here you could see her head went down and I did not release the pressure or reward her. So we're moving on to the next step here, which is where I would like for her to lower her head and keep her head down. But I'd also like for her to gather a hind foot underneath herself. So you can see there she is moving hind foot, but she's also moving a front foot, and I'm pretty particular about that right now because I don't want my horse thinking that they're supposed to walk forward. So even if she moves a hind foot, if a front foot also moves, I'm going to use the lead rope and just ask her to back it up. And you can see here, maybe the lighting's not that great, but that was really good. That was exactly what I wanted. So you could see there, even though the lighting wasn't that great, that I was actually tapping her on her left hind foot because that's the one that I was aiming for her to move. So I wanted to, instead of just doing the belly tap, that was good. She got it. She lowered her head and moved that left hind foot forward. So instead of just doing the belly tap, I decided to tap that hind leg when I felt like she needed some more clarity on what body part it was that I was trying to ask her to move. And there you can see she's getting a big jackpot because that was great for her to lower her head and not move forward with her front feet and take a step forward with a hind foot. So we're trying again, very gentle belly tap. She lowers her head. That's great. I give her a release of pressure and a pause, but I'm going to go ahead and continue asking because I would like for hind foot movement. And you can see that I'm not increasing my pressure. I'm just continuing with the same pressure. I don't want her to get worried about the pressure at all, especially we're trying to teach the lay down here. So if she's worried about the pressure, she's not going to be relaxed enough to lay down. She took a step forward there, so I set her back. I'm tapping that hind leg again just to help physically tell her this is what I want. She moves forward again. Now, this is not my favorite that she moves off to the side, but right before I stood up there, she moved a hind foot forward without moving a front foot. And she got a little startled because I was excited that she did it, and I said, good, kind of quick, and I stood up kind of quick. So that's all that was there. Okay, same thing. Little belly tap. She lowers her head, and then I'm going to go ahead and isolate that hind leg. And I don't care which hind leg she gives me. She could step forward with her right hind. I just feel like tapping hind leg helps her understand the general area of her body that I would like for her to move. Again, she's thinking just forward movement. Maybe I need to step forward with a front foot. Every time she does, I've got my hand on the lead rope, my left hand on the lead rope. So every time she does, I can give her pretty immediate feedback and ask her to back up. Now there, it wasn't perfect again. She moved off to the side and she had just taken a step forward, but a hind foot did move forward without a front foot moving forward. So that's why I released and rewarded. And when she's got her head down here, it's hard to see, but I'm not holding her head down. I have my hand on the lead rope. It's ready to give her feedback and put downward pressure on the lead rope if she picks her head back up, but I'm not physically restraining her in any way. Again, she moves off to the side some. That's going to be something that I'm going to get more particular about in the future, but that time, again, she did not step forward with the front foot and she moved a hind foot. So I released, stopped the whip tap pressure, and rewarded. Also, it's hard to see in a video sometimes just exactly how much pressure I'm using when I tap. But like I said earlier, it's just an annoyance cue. And okay, so here I decide that I want to start educating her that I don't want her to yield her hindquarters away from me. I want her to stay kind of on the line that I put her on. I don't want her getting sideways to me. Because if she were to move her hindquarters to her right, that's going to end up putting me in front of her and potentially kind of under her head and neck when she lays down, and that's not the spot that I want to be in. So I'm going to start getting particular about that. Okay, anyway, getting back to the whip tap pressure that I'm using, it's just a light annoyance cue. That was really great. So it's not enough to cause discomfort. It is enough to give my horse some incentive to want to get it to stop. It's kind of like a fly on their belly that they might kick at and want to get rid of. But I don't want to use, that was great. It was a tiny little step, but it counts. And she didn't even think about moving a front foot. But I don't want to use so much pressure that I get them worried, because that does defeat the purpose of keeping them relaxed enough to lay down. So you can see things are starting to come quicker here. I kneel down, her head goes down. I haven't even touched her with the whip yet. I can feel that she's kind of thinking about something. So I start by not tapping her with the whip. And then nothing happens, so I go ahead and tap her with the whip. And we get a hind foot that steps forward without front feet going forward. So there's definitely always a learning curve involved, and she's getting a jackpot for that because that was great. There's always a learning curve involved, and your horse will go, forwards and backwards and learning things and make progress and then regress. You'll feel like here, we're starting over the next day and we've regressed. See, we're going forward again. But it's great to see that the progress starts coming quicker. Every session that we start, we might still have some of this, but the whole not moving your front feet forward and moving hind foot forward starts to come quicker and quicker. And she got sideways there. Again, it's hard to see with the camera angle, but I am going to start being particular about that. So it's not ideal that I release this belly tap pressure when she moves sideways, but I do as quick as I can get over to the other side of her body with the whip and give her a little tap on the other side to ask her to stay straight. And right there, she got it pretty quick after that. Front feet stayed still, hind foot stepped up underneath her. And we move forward there, but now we got the head down. And that was close, but she kind of moved forward and sideways. And again, I felt like I could stay safe and stay on the ground and do that. I moved my hand a little bit quick there, and we got a gust of wind. So I didn't touch her firm with the whip or anything like that. It just kind of looked a little bad because I moved my hand quick. But right after that, she got it. Head was down, hind foot stepped underneath. It was great. Again, we move forward and we move a little sideways, and so just give her some feedback and say, no, that's not the answer that I'm looking for. Thanks for trying. And that was it. Head down, little tiny baby step forward. All right, I think this was same day but later in the day, and I love that. I know she stepped forward, but as soon as I kneel down and get into position, her head comes down. Didn't even have to touch her with the whip for that. And again, we're progressing. That hind foot is starting to come forward even better. Now, that particular time, you probably saw front foot went forward as well, but I had said good, and I had marked the behavior of the hind foot coming forward before the front foot went. That last time was fabulous. No front foot movement, and we got a hind foot. Same thing. See, I'm not even touching her with the whip yet, and nose goes down, hind foot comes forward. So I like to teach my horses to lay down just from me kind of getting into position. Same deal there. Haven't even touched her with the whip. So I'll give them a chance to offer me the behavior before I start tapping. I see a lot of people that teach the lay down this way that just start tapping their horse's belly. And that's fine, but I think this is a more refined way. Yeah, that was really good. And you can progress it to some kind of fun things, where you just sit on the ground and pat the ground and your horse lays down, or you could put whatever cue you want to it. But I like to use just visual pressure or visual cue first, and then add that whip tap pressure there, or the physical cue. So anyway, that's the first stages of starting to teach Norma Jean to lay down. Doesn't look like much yet, but stay tuned and I will continue to share her progress with learning the lay down.